everybody's in this room and have gotten to where you've gotten to because you're competitive. Everybody wants to make the team. The reality is that's not going to happen.
This is FNL Lacrosse.
Moving right to left. Pearl, the nice pass for Capadoro. Stoned at the doorstep.
FNL Lacrosse. Only on ESPN New Hampshire.
Hour number 2, FNL Lacrosse here on ESPN New Hampshire, ESPNNewHampshire.com. Big hour. Just a moment, our swag bag segment. Mike Armstrong of Sports Stop of New Hampshire makes his weekly appearance. A few minutes after Rob Dazel, Pinkerton girls head coach, Astros unbeaten. He'll join us as well. Bottom of the hour, Steve Gaudreau, St. Anselm's men's lacrosse coach. The Hawks got a playoff game coming up, Northeast 10 quarterfinal matchup at Merrimack. And we'll take a look at the Beals Insurance scoreboard as well. Game scheduled around the state to close out the show. Nick Anastas with you. Dairyfield head coach Chris Hetler sitting in. Coach Cameron was here, but he had to bounce, as they say.
We'll take it home, Nick.
That's right. Coming up here in just a moment, as I mentioned, the swag bag segment. And I don't have to tell you this, Coach, but as every coach, every player knows, equipment is such a big part of the game, especially a sport like lacrosse, where oftentimes if your stuff isn't maintained, right, you've got problems on your hands.
You got big problems. I mean, I saw yesterday, we had to play in the rain yesterday, and, the kids struggled a little bit. We had to adjust the pockets of the sticks a little bit. We weren't shooting and throwing correctly, but learning how to string that stick and adjust it on the fly is a huge part of the game. And like we said the last time I talked with Mike, they do a great job over there of teaching kids how to do that. Actually, I'm going to give Mike a little shout out right now. We during the week I had texted him and called him up and said, Mike, I got one of my guys. They're struggling right now. The stick isn't throwing right. Had us come right over. Spent a lot of time in the shop with us. Got the stick thrown the way we wanted it to. My midfielder, Tyler Zorn, goes out, has 2 goals and 2 assists in the next game. Feeling good. So stick maintenance is extremely important, and those guys over there do a great job. So looking forward to talking to Mike in a few minutes here.
Yeah, Sports Stop of New Hampshire is your locally owned and operated one-stop shop for everything lacrosse. Sports Stop of New Hampshire carries all brands of lacrosse equipment for both boys and girls. It's easy to get to, and they are partnered with one of the country's largest .com retailers, so if they don't have it, they can get it. Whether it's beginner packages, team sales, or a huge selection of restringing supplies, Sports Stop of New Hampshire knows your team. Sports Stop of New Hampshire, 273 South River Road in Bedford. Call 603-606-1921 or email lacrosse@sportstopnh.com. And joining us now is the manager of the store, Mike Armstrong. First of all, Mike, welcome back to the show. Appreciate you jumping on board with us again. How are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Doing good. How are you guys?
We are good, sir. I understand you've got a whole line of brine spring releases to talk about, including the RP3 head and handle and the clutch handle. Let's start there.
Yeah. Well, last week we touched on the Warrior spring release, so I figured I'd go with the brine today. Rob FNL, All-American attackman from Cornell, when he graduated, he signed with brine. Over the past year, they've been working to develop the newest head in the brine line, the RP3. Brine integrated their new Cortex sidewalls into this new head, which increases the stiffness and cuts weight. At first glance, the RP3 looks very similar to the clutch with a similar sidewall design and stringing pattern, but after a second look, the face and head has more of a V shape, where most of the brine heads have a U, and this gives you more hold and a quicker release, making it an attack-oriented head. Go ahead.
No, keep going. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, no. So the RP3 handle, which we had talked about there, I put the name on an old classic, the Magnum. Magnum is Brine's titanium handle, which was recently renamed to the King, and now the RP3. But it's Brine's best strength-to-weight ratio handle.
Now, what increases the value of a handle? I never really understood that.
Yeah, well, the handles are generally made out of a bunch of different materials, but what increases the value is the strength-to-weight ratio that I just mentioned. When purchasing a handle, along with cost, this is what you really need to be considering. Handles are made out of mostly aluminum, which is the most popular and least expensive. Manufacturers generally have 4 different levels of quality for their aluminum, and they range anywhere from $25 to $125. Other materials that are put into the higher-end handles include scandium, titanium, and now what's becoming more popular are the carbon composite handles.
Mike Armstrong, manager of Sports Stop in New Hampshire, located in Bedford, joining us. It's our swag bag segment, talking about handles. Speaking of handles, are there certain handles, Mike, for certain positions?
Although any handle can really be used for any of the positions, there are certain designs that favor certain positions that the manufacturers try to hit on. This doesn't apply to everyone, but generally attackmen are willing to get a heavier handle that will, has a little more strength, that can go through the powering through the defensive checks and when they're dealing with mostly short range shots. Where midfielders are the opposite, they're generally willing to give up some strength to get something a little lighter. Midfielders aren't taking as many stick checks and do more shooting on the run and shooting from outside, so they're looking for something a little lighter.
So style of play, does that make a difference?
Yeah. Now, this is what really matters. You may have noticed I use phrases like most of the time and generally when talking about the positions.
Right.
That's because it really depends on the specific player. For attackmen, bigger players who like to use their bodies, back players down, and power through the defense are going to be looking for something that can take a punishment. Something like the RP3 Magnum that I was talking about. That would be a good option for them. But at the same position, you can get a player that likes to, what we call dangle, have the stick down low, bait defensive checks, and they're going to be looking for something a little lighter so they can move their stick quicker and go around the defense. Same goes for defense. Some players like a heavier handle that will help them throw stronger stick checks, where others like a quicker handle for quicker stick checks. If I'm not mistaken, I think Luke Dupree, who we talked to in the first week, he used to use a wooden shaft when he played at Phillips Andover. And so, that's a much heavier handle. He's a power player. And the wooden handles have a huge intimidation factor, too, especially when you put it in the hands of a 6'5", 200-pound defenseman.
Mike, Chris Hetler here. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, Chris, what's going on?
Nothing, man. I want to thank you again for all the help this week. Tyler had a great game the other day. Sticks throwing great. I think it really fixed him up well. So thank you again for taking the time to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, Grant came in the other day and I talked to him about it. That's awesome to hear.
Very cool. Very cool. Just staying on the theme of shafts there, as a goaltender, my biggest thing was always the weight distribution of it. I wanted the handle to have a similar weight to the head, so that as I was moving, hand speed was really important. So you didn't want one that was too top heavy, but you also didn't want the shaft to be too light either. So for me, I always enjoyed using the Crypto Diamond. What are the goalies using nowadays? I'm getting older here. I got to keep up with the young kids now.
Yeah, a lot of what I've been hearing with goalies is they're looking for a top heavy. They want the head to be a little bit heavier so that when they do go to swing around, it gains a little bit of momentum on the way down. So the gate ice has been a really, really big hit for the goalies. It tends to dent pretty easily, so they go through them pretty quick. But it's the lightest shaft out right now. Is
it more of a rounded shaft? Is it squared off? As a player, I always liked mine a little bit more squared off. I felt it gave me a little better grip on it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it is a bit of a squared shaft. You get those little grooves that you can get your fingers in to get some better grip on it.
Nice.
Fascinating stuff as always, Mike. Appreciate the time, and obviously we'll talk again next week.
Sounds good, Nick.
Thank you. That's Mike Armstrong, manager over at